Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. We're really close to the Game Week 1 deadline now, so it's about time we do a few more team reveals. And today I'm joined by Sam from FPL Family. How are you doing?
I'm all right, although a little bit stressed. It's getting a bit closer to the deadline, and now the kind of panic around the peripheral players in my team is setting in.
Yeah, it's very difficult at this point to be completely confident. If you are, then fair play to you. But most people, when it gets to this time, everything they've thought about is out the window, and it's like kind of just trying to change everything. And the 4.5 million, the £4 million defenders, that's kind of where I'm struggling with, to be honest, to decide. But yeah, let's just jump straight into it, I reckon, and see how your team is looking. I've put the whole. I was going to do like defense, midfield, and then forwards, like I told you before we come on. But I'm going to put it all on screen at once. So I think it's if anyone's got a Man United player on the bench, it's important to give context to why the rest of the team might not look as strong for Game Week 1. So let's start on Fernandes. There's been a lot of talk about him this week. I saw Mark and Az talking about him on Black Box. Mark's very worried about not going with him. I'm currently not getting him. What's your thoughts about him? Do you think he's just going to be as good as he was last year straight away?
So I do, yeah, I do think he'll be as good as last year. He's been in every single draft that I've had, but I'm at that point now where he could still be Rashford by the time the deadline rolls around. That extra million is so useful in other parts of the team that he could still get downgraded. And I think now Rashford is a midfielder as well, both on penalties probably. There's an element that I kind of do think that Rashford's going to have a really good season this year. He was just starting to pick that up during the end of the restart, and I can see him doing well. But Fernandes, just for me, feels like a really nice, safe pick. Got penalties in his locker. All the good stuff that was going on at United was going through him. There is a slight worry that I have that when he and Pogba were playing together, it was kind of one would go and then the other would go, and he hung back a little bit more. And will that happen again now with Van der Beek? That is kind of playing in my mind. But is that just we're so close to deadline panic, or is that kind of something I should listen to? And that's what my head's trying to work out at the minute.
Yeah, I think for anyone that's kind of in the same position where you're starting to, I think if you've had someone the whole time and now you're starting to doubt them, it's probably just last minute kind
I
of
think
nerves
so.
and worries. I think if you've chopped and changed a few times, it's a bit different. But if you've had someone in the whole time, you probably should keep them. Although obviously there's no harm in changing your mind. What right now you've got two. Obviously you've got Ryan and Walton, but you want to rotate goalkeepers. Is that because of kind of the whole world situation right now? Is that why you're thinking of doing that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I always like to have rotating keepers. I never have a set and forget. I like to have two because then if there's a duff fixture that comes up, which of course there will be over the course of the season, and even in Game Week 1, Ryan's playing Chelsea, and with Werner and the new kind of Chelsea boys that are going to start that game, there's going to be goals for Chelsea, you would have thought. So don't see a clean sheet there. And I like the option of being able to rotate. So ideally, I need to find another 0.5 so that Walton can become Martinez if he gets a loan to Aston Villa and becomes their first choice, or probably more likely McCarthy at Southampton. I like the way that Brighton and Southampton rotate during the course of the season. So that would be the ideal, but it's just whether I can find 0.5.
Yeah, if you are going to find that, how do you think right now you're going to do it? Because you've got mostly really cheap defenders already. Really,
Yeah.
you've got so many big hitters: Kane, Fernandez. You've got four over 10 million, which a lot
Yeah.
of teams don't have. So right now, if you were going to try and find that 0.5, where do you think you'd find it from?
Well, so I want Kane for Game Week 1 for sure. I think Kane against Everton, he's got a brace in two of the last four times that he's played against Everton. I just see them starting the season well, and the Spurs fixtures are really nice. So longer term, it might be that Kane becomes someone like Delhi in the middle, and then that frees up a little bit of money. But for now, I think it'll probably be even that I take Livermore down again, because he's going to be my fifth choice. So I don't really need to have spent 5 million on a fifth choice midfielder. I can just get one of the real cheap 4.5s and leave him sat on the bench for the rest of the season. But I think with the situation as it is in the world at the moment, there is always an element of risk if you just go with one keeper, even if it's a Edison or an Allison. You have that chance that they miss a game through illness, whatever it is, and they're out for a bit. So for me, rotating keepers becomes even more important this year.
Do you think there's a? I mean, one idea you could do is put Mitchell in instead of Ferguson and play him in the first week instead of Livermore, and obviously downgrade. Or is Ferguson basically in your team for the long term, so you don't have to worry about that
Yeah.
position? You're hoping that he comes in, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, last year my strategy was to go long term. I didn't think about Game Week 1. I was just saying to you before we came on, I didn't have Sterling for Game Week 1. It massively cost me. But equally, I knew that my team was set for Game Week 2 onwards, so I wasn't kind of panicking. And I'm with Ferguson, he is in there for that exact reason. I don't want him I don't want to have to make a change in the 4.0s. I think of all the 4.0s, he is the one that's most likely to get game time once he's fit and available. So he's a bit more of a long-term pick, but it does mean that I don't have a bench currently for game week 1.
Yeah, that's a bit of a worry. I don't know. It's a tough one for game week 1. I feel like most of the time we know which players are gonna play. I think Aubameyang, Salah, St. Maximin, Kane, all those kind of players. You'd be very unlucky if one of them just suddenly missed out at the last minute. So maybe you could go about it for game week 1. And then hopefully Ferguson can come in sooner rather than later. Let's talk about a team you mentioned there, Chelsea, right? So you've not got any Chelsea players. They're quite popular. I mean, Brighton away is not the worst fixture. Liverpool's obviously a bit of a more difficult one in game week 2. What's the reasoning behind that, not having any of them?
They played Brighton in pre-season, and it wasn't I know pre-season is what it is, and we just have to kind of use it for what we can get from it. But it wasn't a Chelsea thrashing of Brighton. I think Brighton do look more solid defensively this year if Ben White's going to stay at the club. So I'm expecting Brighton to put up a bit of a fight against Chelsea. They also don't have all of the new boys available. They don't have Thiago Silva, they don't have Chilwell. They're going to be without Ziyech. So there's going to be a few players that aren't kind of hitting the ground running at Chelsea straight away. And for me, I'm not entirely sure which Chelsea asset I want. I know Werner's incredibly popular, and I think probably longer term he'll be the way that I go. But I just feel like for the first couple of game weeks, I do want Kane. So it's probably likely that Werner or one of the Chelsea boys are going to come in game week 3. That's my planning, is to run my transfer from game week 1 into game week 2, so that I've got 2 transfers to make into game week 3, and I can fill my boots with Chelsea and Man City at that point when the fixtures are really nice for both clubs.
Yeah, good plan. Obviously, a lot of people are doing the kind of Aubameyang to Man City midfielder, whoever that might be in game week 3. Maybe our opinions would have greatly changed by then. Let's talk about some of the other big hitters then. So Salah is in. Now, maybe it's a bit of last minute panic. There's a lot of people now thinking about going without Salah. Some obviously were before as well. Mostly because Aubameyang's seen as quite a good captain for the first 2. Obviously, you've got Kane as well. You could captain Aubameyang game week 2, whoever it might be. And so people are starting to think about spreading the value around. Is he someone you've considered getting rid of at all?
No. He is literally the one that, alongside Aubameyang, who's been there since the game launched, and Trent, Salah is going nowhere. I think he hasn't been top point scorer for so many seasons by luck. Over the course of the season, he will do well. He normally does well in game week 1. We saw that last season against Norwich. He scored points there. I think there'll be returns for him against Leeds in this game week. And I think the problem I have with Salah is that every game that he plays, particularly at home, he's captainable. So for me, he's worth the money that you've got to spend on him to have somebody that you can captain pretty much every week and not worry about his performances, because over the course of the season, he's going to come good. And I think for me, that was something that I learned massively last season, is that with my premium assets, I try and stay as loyal as possible and stick with them even if they have a duff week or a duff couple of weeks, because over the course of the year, it's going to level itself out. And with so many premium options in the middle this year, the risk of chopping and changing between them is that you just miss out on point totals everywhere because you're on the wrong one on the wrong week. So I'm going to be loyal, try not to points chase and stick with Salah all season.
Yeah, this is true, because you came, top 5k last year?
Yeah, 3,499 last year, so decent season.
Yeah, so it's interesting, different styles. So you're very loyal to big hitters, and obviously you'll see people like Late Riser, for example. Yeah. Someone else we have on, he's complete opposite. He's not loyal at all. He'll swap them around. So it's interesting how different strategies can both get you a really good finish. It'll be interesting to see kind of which one, if either, works out really well this year. Last kind of thing really on the team as a whole, you're on a 4-4-2. Obviously, Livermore goes out and Fernandes comes in game week 2. Are you worried about playing basically big at the back in terms of numbers with such a cheap defence? Does that worry you a little bit?
Well, part of the reason Eric Dyer's in there is to give me a little bit more flexibility, because I think at first, and for most of the pre-season, I've had Trent and then 3 4.5s and then Ferguson, and it's kind of like at that point you've got nowhere to go. There's no movement, there's no wiggle room in terms of if somebody starts to perform. So that was massively concerning me. Hence why I've put an extra 0.5 in defence with Dyer. I'm not sure that Dyer's exactly the right pick longer term, but I think for the opening few game weeks, he could be a decent pick until we know which defences are kind of hit the ground running. And I think longer term, I'm going to want a Chelsea defender. So having Dyer in there means it's easier to get to a Chelsea defender, particularly as at some stage in the next couple of weeks, whichever one of my premiums isn't performing in terms of Kane or Aubameyang. And it will be a hard decision to lose Kane over Aubameyang for me with my Spurs loyalties. But Kane has always kind of been the one that I thought, well, you'll be there for the start, and then I'll free up some money from you by going down to Werner or somebody else in that bracket. And then I can deploy the money that I save from you into my back line to strengthen that and build somebody better, I guess, alongside Trent.
Yeah, certainly an interesting strategy. I think I haven't seen too many teams with, like I said, 4 £10 million plus big hitters. Like, some people are considering the likes of Ings and Werner as big hitters. And a lot of people will probably be put off by the fact you do have to cheapen in some areas. But of course, you've always got the option of downgrading. You can, in the first couple of weeks, just check who performs. And then, maybe it's Kane that you downgrade, like you said, maybe it's Aubameyang. So yeah, it's an interesting draft and definitely a little bit different. I think a lot of people that are thinking about Fernandes would have been happy to see this because, I've not seen too many drafts of him in. I think as long as you're happy with the players you've got to play in Gameweek 1, it's not a huge issue. So good luck with it. I'll just quickly say before we go, we do still have, obviously we have a members area on Fantasy Football Sky. If you've not already checked it out and if you've not signed up to be a member, there's loads of team reveals going on there at the moment, as well as all the articles throughout the season, all the tools, the per 90 tools, stats tables, comparison tables, all this stuff. So if you want to check that out, there's a handy link in the description below. Just click on that, you can sign up, and it's for the whole season for 12 months. So you have it right up until the end of 2020-2021. Otherwise, I say, Sam, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, it was a pleasure. And good luck with the team. Like I said, it's nice to see something a little bit different. We'll see if Kane captain can come off against the big Salah and Aubameyang. I'm expecting him to be quite lowly captain, probably about 5% maybe in the, I won't say top 10k, but overall probably 5 or 10%, I guess, max.
Yeah, I think that there is a chance that I might wobble and end up moving it to Aubameyang, but I would really like to captain Kane this week.
Okay, well, try and stay strong. Stay strong. Not too long to go now. And I'd say that to everyone else as well. Stay strong. Make sure the decisions you've made throughout a whole of pre-season, just stick with them at this point. Thanks very much for watching. Like the video if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit to 50,000 subscribers. Plenty more team reveals and stuff going on today as well. And I'll catch you later on for the team news stream.